Phone is now unmuted.
And transcription started. All right.
The Board of Directors midwifery meeting is convening at 8:04 a.m. on May 11th, 2023 at the Health Licensing Office in Salem, Oregon by telephone conference call. I will now call roll. Kelsey Fisher here. Meredith Klein.
Here.
Wendy Smith.
Here.
Christine Morales.
Here.
Annette Pettibone. Not here. Meredith Mance.
Here.
Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Board members are asked to not use the chat feature during meetings. Public members wishing to speak must first sign in on the roster sheet available. For public members calling in on the public phone line, please email April Fleming at april.fleming@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order.
Chair, members of the board, Spot Bothwell for the record, interim director here at HLO. So number 2 on the list, the introductions of Brianna Peters. She was not able to make her confirmation with the Senate. So we'll have to, when we make a motion to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Never mind. I thought we needed to approve the agenda, but that's next.
Yes, but we want to get that through so we can, whoever makes the motion to approve the agenda will amend it with removing the introductions.
She'll have September, just when they have the next thing.
Thank you. And she'll be confirmed September.
Great. Looking forward to having a public member.
Okay, so approval of the agenda.
Does someone want to move to approve the agenda with the amendment of removing the introduction of the public member?
This is Wendy Smith, and I move to approve the agenda with the exception of deleting the introduction.
Thanks, Wendy.
This
is
Christine.
Meredith.
I second.
We have plenty of seconds. Thank you, Christine and Meredith. Motion has been made and seconded. I will call for a vote. Kelsey Fisher, aye. Meredith Klein.
Aye.
Wendy Smith.
Aye.
Christine Morales.
Aye.
Annette Pettibone, not here yet. Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Motion passed. The agenda is approved.
Okay. And next on the agenda is the approval of the remaining 2023 board meetings. Should have received some information with regards to some dates that HL is proposing to cancel. If the board recalls, we added the extra meetings because we were so far behind on cases, but we're fairly caught up on those. And so we're proposing to possibly cancel June 15. And July 6, August 17, September 14, and October. Nope, let me re-clarify. We'll have the July 6, we'll cancel August 17, September 14, have October 12, and cancel November. The reason HLO.
Statement for this thing, I didn't put it in.
Oh, okay. So the reason that we're requesting this is a couple. One, so far between now and June legislation, there was not for HLO alone, but total there's 2,000 bills. They've whittled them down quite a bit, but HLO still has a number of them out there. And additionally, the board meetings come to us. It may seem like a month to you, but it seems like weeks, just a couple of weeks for us, because we have to start pulling documentation together, and we really aren't able to show any movement on cases. or any of the other work that HL needs to do for the board. So, we would like to propose these dates that I mentioned: June 15, August 17, September 4, and November to be canceled.
Ms. Kelsey, I don't see a problem with that since they're technically our special meetings anyways, and if there's not a need for them. Would it be possible to move the July 6th to the next week? If we're talking about the schedule anyways, I have a conflict on that date.
Okay, possibly. Let me take a look at our calendar.
What was the question?
July 6th. Kelsey would like to move it to the following week. Anyway,
And I'll go over legislation and timelines or rules under policy.
okay. So you have a calendar, Sammy?
Yes.
Let's take a look.
Thank you.
That's, she wants to do what?
The following week.
I'll be on vacation, but you guys can hold down the fort.
And you'll be on vacation. I don't know if I like that or not, but anyway, we'll have the board meeting anyway. Looks like the calendar is clear. So
I
what's
won't
that
be able
date?
to come that time. This is Meredith Klein. But
Will
So
not?
if everyone else can come, then
Okay.
we can leave it if we need to.
Yeah, what's the,
Thursday, July 13th. So if we can get a quorum, change it.
yeah. So, I'll, make the motion if that's okay, Chair. Since I made the notes,
You'll read it.
read it. Yeah, so, changing the 2023 meeting dates, we'll cancel June 15. We'll
And
cancel,
There's rule stuff. Depending on how they decide today on rule stuff. I
pending.
know, sorry, I have a whole
Possibly.
document for you guys that didn't get put in materials.
Okay, so as we do this on the fly, so we may cancel June 15. We will cancel August 17, September 14, and November. And we will meet again July 13 and October 12. And if I can get a motion. Someone could just say so moved.
Oh, yeah, so moved.
Okay, Kelsey, would you
Thanks,
roll,
Christine.
please?
Do we need a second?
Oh, yes, we do.
hey, second. This is Meredith Mance.
Thanks, Meredith.
Mance. A motion has been made and seconded. I will call the roll. Kelsey Fisher, aye. Meredith Klein,
Aye.
Wendy Smith,
Aye.
Christine Morales,
Aye.
Lynette Pettibone. Not here. Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Next item on the list, good morning, Heather. Next item on the list is approval of the supervisor in case number 157859. And you all should have a copy of the default final order in your packet. Travis, you want to come online, please? There you are. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. So we have a couple of things to talk about on this particular case, number 157859. The two pieces that we have to talk about today are the approval of the supervisor and then also the potentially approving the classes. So I'm not sure if everybody has had a kind of a chance to look over this information. I know that there's a lot of it, and I know that it came in pretty late, but we had just got it in, and we we were hoping to, get it through, but we're kind of on a short time frame, so I apologize for that ahead of time. Basically, this case, was a case that we had that went that had some discipline attached to it. This is the midwife was actually no longer practicing at the time, but the final order in the case basically said that if she comes back, some of these things will kick in. She'll have to take 3 classes, and she'll also have to have a supervisor for a period of 12 months. She has decided to try to come back and get her license. But before she can be issued a license, we have to have these things taken care of. So that's a little bit of an overview of the background of this. So, she sent in this information. It looks like the first thing that is in order on this list is to approve the supervisor. The person that she wants to have approved is
Lyndon Clark.
Lyndon Clark. So Lyndon Clark has had a license. She's had a license with us recently. She had a license previously in 2008 to 2011. She left being a licensed midwife and came back to being a licensed midwife just kind of recently. Her current license was reissued in 2021. So
I think she'd be a great supervisor. This is Meredith Klein.
This is Meredith Mance. I agree. I know that she didn't stop practicing during that time. She just chose to practice as a traditional midwife. So I think she would be a good supervisor to be able to speak to the difference and scope of practice and things like that when supervising this midwife. So I think this is a good choice.
Does anybody have any objections to this supervisor?
Just to confirm, she's never had any final actions or anything.
No.
That's right. She hasn't ever had any disciplinary actions. I don't think we need to do.
Maybe
I'm sorry.
Can you just speak to the people that know of her? Can you speak to sort of her level relative to Cynthia? Because Cynthia, from what I know, I mean, she's fairly experienced, no? Or I'm not entirely sure. That was my impression. So
I don't know anything about their personal relationship or, whether they're close or anything, but I do know they live quite far apart. I believe Cynthia's on the coast and Lennon's in Salem. So I don't know if that helps at all, but I do know that at least there's physical distance there. I don't know anything about their interpersonal relationship, but they're not neighbors and best friends that are practicing together or anything like that.
And Chair and members of the board, I've got Sammy over here in my left ear saying she's been on her rack and she's great.
Yeah.
If that helps.
Yeah.
But it sounded like nothing but positive feedback from the board. So if someone wants to make a motion to approve the supervisor, we can do that, or yes, we can do that.
I move to approve Lennon Clark as a supervisor in this case.
That was Meredith Klein.
That was Meredith Klein, yeah.
Thank you. And a second, please.
This is Meredith Mance, and I second.
A motion has been made and seconded. I'll call for a vote. Kelsey Fisher, aye. Meredith Klein,
Aye.
Wendy Smith,
Aye.
Christine Morales,
Aye.
Lynette Pettibone, still absent, Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Motion passes. Lennon Clark is approved as a supervisor for Cynthia Luxford.
Okay.
So
Thank
the
you.
next piece that we need to talk about is the approval of the classes. The final order stipulated that she had to take a class in ethics, management of post dates, and also charting. So you can see that there is, I mean, I think that you guys can see what this is, but she took a class in ethics, and you should see the information there. Also, she took a class in defensive charting, and you can see the classes there. The other situation is, and you can read it in the letter, is that she did the management of the post dates. She was proposing that the self-study be accepted in lieu of a class. And then there's some additional documents. The bulk of the documents in that pile, I think, relate to that self-study information. So I'll let you guys I'll let you all discuss it, and you know, maybe for you know, organization, maybe we can just talk about the 3 classes or the 3 situations separately, and we can talk about the ethics class first. Maybe does you know, what is everybody's thoughts on the ethics class, whether or not it fulfills the requirement of this final order?
This is Meredith Mance. That was the first thing that stood out to me looking at this, is it seemed more like general workplace ethics, which, I mean, obviously I wasn't around when we made this final order, but that doesn't seem like something that we would request of a midwife getting their license. I feel like medical ethics specifically, or related to midwifery care, or even just healthcare in general, seems more appropriate. And this seems more just like one of those classes you have to take to start your job in an office sort of deal. Like I didn't see anything specific to healthcare.
So I'll just read also what it said the requirement was. The respondent is required to complete an ethics course. Respondent is responsible for identifying the courses and submitting the courses to HLO for approval by the board. So that it's pretty
Vague.
it just kind of yeah, it leaves it kind of vague, but you know, that is what the requirement is. I just want to make sure everybody knew what they're working with.
Krampus, this is Bob, and the board has not seen these courses before. They weren't approved prior to her taking them.
No.
Okay.
I was just wondering that too. This is Meredith Klein. It seems like if you just read exactly how it is in the order, Trampus, like we've had this issue before where people do the classes and then submit them. So it's maybe something that we could do also to be more clear about submit it to the board before taking it. Because I agree with Meredith Mance, that doesn't seem like an appropriate class, and that could have been decided ahead of time and saved her the time of taking it. It seems like she's not the only one that's confused about that, or that's not clear, because that just takes more time. I mean, I know this is an old case, but
right.
In general, when there's a timeline and then someone's not meeting it because they didn't get the course approved before, it's just not very efficient, clearly.
Yeah, this particular notice doesn't say anything about pre-approval. We could talk about incorporating that type of language in future situations. So that's a good thing to think about for sure.
Or a little more, this is Bob, or a little more specificity when we write the notice as to exactly medical ethics, business ethics, whatever the board thinks is the appropriate. But
and we'll remember. I remember that this was actually final ordered in 2019, so it was a little bit ago, kind of pre some of the kind of the last round that we had.
I see Wendy's hand up. Good morning, Wendy.
Hey, good morning. Hey, so yeah, Wendy. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, this one's a little bit different because this is sort of a requirement for license renewal, but I agree that having the language of before you take a class, it needs to be approved. I want to comment on that post-dates home study. I went through that evidence-based post-dates pamphlet or whatever the course, the information, and I mean, I do not approve of that. I think the studies are poor. They're really old. They're pretty sketchy overall, and so I'm not okay with that particular one. I went through the Canadian ones, and I think those are better and more balanced. You know, and I have to admit, what I would love from her, and I guess we can't do it, is a narrative that after doing home study, here's what I would do differently in this case. And because I mean, this case was relatively heinous, and I think we came up with all this stuff because I felt like, because I never thought she was going to reapply, but here we are. And if we're going to agree to a home study, there has to be some assessment.
Well, this is Kelsey, and one of the things that I noticed in some of what she submitted to us was that after reading that, she made her own like pamphlet or handout for post dates. So that might be something that we could request as like verification of what she learned from the self-study to see if we feel like it's adequate.
Well, I am gonna disapprove of that evidence-based birth post dates information. I don't agree with that. I think the other two are reasonable, but I'm not clear that I'm okay with self-study anyway, but there has to be some ability to assess the learnings related to self-study.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any thoughts on the ethics class and whether the intention was like medical or specifically midwifery or obstetric ethics versus the ethics course that she took? You're muted, Wendy.
Sorry, I don't know. I mean, I'm not. I'm not sure that one is better than another, honestly, but I mean, I'll go with whatever you guys think on that one, because teaching ethics is always something that's kind of questionable to me anyway. But
does anyone else have thoughts on the ethics course?
I mean, there's a really good book about, this is Meredith Klein, Professional Ethics in Midwifery specifically, written by Elisa Foster. She's a midwife I knew from Austin. And she used to do classes, that used to be courses as well at conferences, etc. I don't know if anything like that is available anymore with her, but if we're doing self-study, then that would be a great book to require.
So are we approving the ethics class? And this is the book in question is maybe for later times, a future date.
Yeah, so I think that that's what we need to decide is whether the ethics class she took fulfills the requirements in the final order.
This is
Sorry.
Meredith Anson. I don't think that, I mean, it's hard because the way the order is written is so vague that, I mean, like, technically, I guess it does, but like, when we're talking about intention and what we want her to have her license again, I do think it needs to be healthcare related for me to feel comfortable with it, because otherwise, like, what's the point?
I agree. This is Meredith Klein. I mean, you don't see an ethics class very often, or I haven't in final order, so it must have been, it was on purpose that was in there, obviously. And that's like, yeah, not really healthcare related. I would want to see something more on that.
Okay. What about the charting?
This is Meredith Mance again. I've taken this charting class as part of like a bundle of other things, and it's pretty good. It's pretty thorough, and I didn't read through the things when I realized that it was the same class that I had taken, but I'm fine with the charting class.
Does anybody have any issues with the charting class?
Do we have, I think it was before my time, but didn't Augustine Colebrook have final orders in Oregon? I don't know if that's a concern for anyone.
Campus?
Kelsey,
August.
what did you say?
I was vaguely recalling that before my time on the board that there were final orders issued for Augustine Colebrook, who taught this charting class.
Oh,
I don't know if that's a point of issue, but we've had other members that had regulatory final orders, and they're teaching classes. So, but the answer to your question is yes.
It was quite a while ago, though, right?
I don't
Yeah.
recall.
I don't believe that Augustine Colebrook has been
2011.
practicing in Oregon for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's been
center.
practicing elsewhere and doing a lot of education and community work. That class looks fine to me. This is Meredith Klein.
Yeah, it looks thorough. Are there any objections to approving this charting class?
no.
I saw 3 no's. Meredith Mance,
No objections.
Wendy.
I mean, I have no basis to say no objection, except that I have experience with her from pasts, but if I will go with the program and say no objection. Maybe we've had some growth and forward movement, which would be great.
We can hope for. So,
Do we want to talk
go
about
ahead.
the post dates course?
Yeah, I agree with Wendy. I really didn't find that was like sufficient in kind of addressing the issue. So I feel like a course would be kind of more the intent of the final order than just studying at home.
Yeah, now in her letter, she's stating that she was having a hard time finding a class that specifically dealt with this. Are classes like this available for her, or where is there somewhere that that she would be able to go to
Found one.
find
This
one?
is
Would
Meredith
there-
Mance again. I think it's also reasonable to like have her look broader than just a class that's on post dates management. You know, it could be on overall risk assessment that includes post dates management. Like that's something that I would be more willing to approve than just self-study. So I think maybe if there isn't a specific post dates only, like that can be the response too, as it just needs to include that. But I agree with Christine and Wendy that just reading doesn't necessarily give us any sort of assessment.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, Meredith, is I think a risk assessment, including post dates management, would maybe be the appropriate option in this case. And yeah. And I like the idea of seeing that little write-up that she had. I don't know. I mean, but that's optional.
I mean, are we allowed to really, that's sort of expanding on I mean, I don't disagree in like the spirit of it, but that's not what's in the order, you know? So then now we're saying like, okay, well, a overall risk assessment that includes that. And I mean,
Well, if it doesn't exist as its own entity, I mean, that's something that we don't
Right.
explore when we're making recommendations. So if it does not exist as its own entity and we don't feel good about this self-study, then we've got to figure out a way to incorporate learning about post-dates, so.
right. I mean, I guess the what I'm also saying is if she's read all of that stuff, I mean, I know the evidence-based birth. I didn't reread that whole thing because I'm familiar with her website and I've looked at it before, but she does talk a lot about relative risk versus absolute risk. And there's a lot of resources for, you know, looking into it further. The Canadian thing was really thorough. I would be satisfied with like seeing the document, her document that, that puts together what she learned and states how she's like assimilated it in her practice or incorporated it in her practice. I would be satisfied with that with the self-study.
I mean, the other thing, just to expand upon it, why risk assessment may be a better choice, and you're right, we can't go back and make a change, but we did make an order, you know, to have post-dates education that we approve, is that this person has now been out of practice for 4 years, right, in theory, and, you know, a little good risk assessment is a real important thing to have updated, so I wouldn't be opposed.
I do think something to keep in mind with what we choose to approve is the precedent that we might be setting. You know, if we say we want a class on a specific thing, whether we approve self-study or a class that is just tangentially on that thing, like either of those is potentially precedent setting. So I just want us to be mindful of what direction we're going in the bigger picture, not just this one case.
Okay, so this is Bob. So we are denying the management of post-dates class? The courses she took, the self-studies?
It sounds like that's the majority. I mean, I would want to give her a suggestion of another course if we're going to deny what she did or, you know, not approve what she did. So that, you know, this person's trying to get relicensed. It's just so that we don't so we give her the opportunity to fulfill it soon.
Is it another self-study type class, Meredith?
I mean, I don't know. I'm satisfied with her self-study if I saw like a document putting it all together, but other folks aren't. So what I'm saying is I would love to see like let's give her a suggestion. We don't like this, but we want you to take this. So that she has like a direction and can fulfill it. She seems, you know, sounds motivated.
Yeah, but just, isn't anything.
So just
I know.
a class, like, is there a class with Hive? I feel like there's something recently related to that.
I was just
Yeah.
looking through Hive to see if there was anything, and there isn't anything that would satisfy that.
I do know from one of our other approving classes that OMC was going to teach a risk assessment class. It might be possible to contact them and see if those dates could be specifically included with that class, and then we could recommend that if we're comfortable with a class that sort of incidentally talks about post dates in the context of risk assessment. How does that sound?
I would be more comfortable with that.
Okay. Yeah, we're over here looking and we're not seeing anything in Hive either. No. Yeah. So, this is Bob. We will, so the defensive charting, the board's approved. And so we'll need to make a motion that the classes that the defensive charting class is approved, the ethics and the management of post dates are not.
I might have been wrong about that risk assessment class coming up because I'm not seeing anything about it.
It's just a practice clarification on it.
So I don't know if we want to do more discussing about that class.
We can.
What else would you want to discuss?
Well, the class that I was thinking of, apparently, I think I was maybe wrong because it doesn't seem like it's on the schedule for OMC. So I don't know if we want to generally say a risk assessment class, if that specific one isn't available.
Could we word it as at least acknowledging that she wasn't able to find the post dates class and say, like, you know, in the absence of a class that doesn't simply cover post dates management, the board would accept a risk assessment class that includes it. And then she can look for that. Like, is that a reasonable thing to say to her? Because then at least we're acknowledging, we hear you that you couldn't find this thing, but we think there's something that would work better.
I can imagine
Instead of
she
just
will-
saying no and then not getting anything back.
Yeah, I can imagine she's going to want us to point her in the right direction. We're saying no because
Five has one.
5 has one.
Mhm.
I do think OMC
Yeah. and
has
so-
also said that they'd teach classes, risk assessment class on request. So that might still be an option. Just the one I was thinking of already happened.
Okay, so
So does someone want to move that we, in this case, that we approve the charting class and do not approve the post-dates self-study or the ethics course?
Sure, this is Christine. I move that we approve the charting course, but do not approve the ethics course or the self-study for post dates.
This is Meredith Manson, I second.
Motion has been made and seconded. I'll call for a vote. Kelsey Fisher, aye. Meredith Klein,
Aye.
Wendy Smith,
Aye.
Christine Morales.
Aye.
Lynette is still not here. Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Motion passes.
okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm trying to get to my next item.
Executive session.
All right. So, Chair, members of the board, the next item on the agenda is executive session. If you have your script, Kelsey, want to read us into executive session, please?
Yeah, do we have a estimate for the time on this?
Probably
Mm.
about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Board of Direct Entry Midwifery will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, ORS 192.3559A, and ORS 40.225 for the purpose of considering information exempt from public disclosure at 8:44 a.m. on May 11th, 2023. Representatives of the news media shall be allowed to attend the executive session by conference call and will be provided further call-in instructions shortly. The public phone line will be muted for the duration of the executive session. Are there any representatives of the news media on the public phone line?
Hi, on the telephone, this is Bob Bothwell. Is there any representatives of the news media? Hearing none.
Recognizing there is no news media in attendance, the public phone line will be muted for the duration of the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions. It is estimated that the board will return to public session at 9:05 a.m. Please be aware that it is possible that the board's executive session will last longer than 9:05 a.m. If the public has any questions about whether the board is still in executive session, then the public can contact April Fleming at april.fleming@dhsoha.state.or.us. We are now in executive session.
Okay, give a second to